What's good, YouTube? And welcome to Mega Tin prices being absolutely out of control. $36 for a tin? I thought this set wasn't that good. What's happening? It turns out there's a good reason for this for the tin itself. And I had to do a lot of digging to find out why, because if you go over to the Mega Pack bundles, they're under half this price and under MSRP by a good chunk already. MSRP for the bundle is $21, but the tins are $24, so there's a 1.5x multiplier, and they're selling on TCG Player. My first piece of advice is go out, touch grass, and get yourself to Walmart or Target to get tins, because a lot of locals will not have them. This was not offered through distro, apparently, at least here in the US for the most part. It instead was offered direct by Konami and would have cost stores a lot more in order to get the physical tins than through distro. I think it would have been like $2 more a tin versus how it usually goes. And I know MSRP is already up as is, but like, why get those when you can get the bundles then? And this will take up more shelf space on top. And if distro's not offering and I have to continue to order from distros in order to keep my order numbers up when I want to get product in, well, I should be ordering this from distro and not Konami directly. So many strings and moving pieces, all for this to end up so much higher on here. And you still could order this as a store from Konami Direct, I think for something like $160 a case, which isn't the worst in the world, but if a ton of stores rushed at that right now just to try to list them online, they'll end up undercutting each other and end up kind of taking a loss versus what's already happening with the set itself. But let's go ahead and talk about the single prices day one versus pre-sales, because early on, in the day, it takes people a while to list. People were like, there's not that much of a change versus pre-sales. Oh no, here goes Dominus Impulse way down, although still very low on listing. So people are going to slam in the demand part of supply and demand this opening weekend. You're going to see a lot of people rush at cards, and some listings end up way down like Impulse as their price looks pretty good versus pre-sale, but Perulia towards $36 is a little bit grim. SP Little Knight is a bit under pre-sale if I recall, and then other cards like Regeki, Harpy Feather Duster, I did call that them being in the easier slot would make them cheaper, and technically, even though it's a higher rarity, it's a lower rarity than the OGs because of how easy it is to pull. I don't make the rules though. Starlight Rare, most people will consider it higher rarity, won't they? Pot of Greed, iconic and the biggest nostalgia bait in the 10, barely makes the top cards on the list here, and then the prices just go down from there. Chaos Sorcerer, I did mention on Gamer's Choice, was one of the main deals that I saw. I think they listed it at $3, where Tier 0 went at $8, and at just about $6, it sits between both of their estimates. I love seeing that kind of stuff on how it actually plays out, but I did say that I thought it was a deal over on Gamer's Choice. Bottomless Trap Hole is around $5, makes sense to me, and the Bestials are some of the top cards after being so long awaited for their reprints and in shiny form here. But yeah, then the value just starts to bleed out of the 10s, and if you're only getting, 3 packs and, there's 100 different secret rares, and look where the rest of the prices start to line up, they are coming down very fast in price through this opening page. I do think stuff like Heart of the Blue Eyes might be going back up over time for collectors. Like, people will go for mid-max and go for Blue Eyes cards, especially Grandpa's Blue Eyes. Then you have Miracle Fusion in here. There's a lot to actually enjoy long term for how cheap it is day one, at least in my opinion. But let me know what you think of how the 10s overall are performing, and for the most part, they are down in price early and not overperforming. But for certain singles that are so hard to pull that people have really waited for, yeah, they're going to go for more than the cost of the 10, which usually would be a healthy sign for a product, but due to the actual bloat of this product, I wouldn't call it too healthy off the rip. I think like if you go buy 12 of these bundles, that ends up around $200, so people are still making money selling at this rate, but not by the most in the world. And we'll see how these tins actually end up aging versus the day one ridiculous price. And if it is mostly retail only, by the way, just to add on, that means people would spend $24 to try to list this online, pay shipping and then fees, and this is barely making anything versus that. So this pricing makes a bit of sense versus people trying to do that rather than actually getting cases on cases of this in. But fools and their money are soon parted, and a lot of people are parting with their money at $38 to $36 freaking dollars. If you want the physical 10, shop big retail, unfortunately. Now, some other cards on the lower end are going up, like Metamorphosis is on buyout mode early, and I think this version of Metamorphosis will look oh so nice next to the Retro Pack Goat. And a lot of people brush Goat aside now. Oh, Edison is king. Remember, one Time Wizard event spiked the entire Goat market like crazy, but Time Wizard's gone, at least here in North America. There could be formats for Europe that happen, but how impactful would that be? Still though, don't underestimate how many people have waited for a nice looking version of this. This is over blinged in my opinion to some degree. It looks way better on vanillas for this Platinum Secret, and not everybody likes that vibe. So it makes sense that the ultra rare out of the tins is probably going to quickly match that price for an easy access version, and that pool is also bloated even though you're pulling more of those cards. It's good to see a little bit of value in the lower end of the tins that isn't nosebleed. Then you have the quarter century secret rare. Again, QCRs in general are just down, and we'll discuss that later. I think easy access Starlights and them saying fair game to anything that's QCR is doing a lot of lifting in that regards as well, to people just offloading them. Also, the Fire King Courtier is going up slowly. It's not crazy in price or anything, but people have waited for this reprint for a good bit, and so it's getting slammed by demand day one as well. Now, for the cards that missed the tens, Dark Magician, the Magician of Black Magic, this card actually is ridiculous that it missed the tens in my opinion, and is already up towards $5. You can see here bottomed out at $3. That's almost a double up. We also have LZ missing in action, and it is spiking up a bit quicker, but also towards $5 to $6. And also in that $5 range that missed the 10, Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon, I guess doomed not to have a reprint yet, is slow climbing, and it is towards $8 to $9. So it was actually that $5 range and then ended up going up. We see that Zoroa, for both of its versions, have had the reprints, yet are starting to climb as people hope for Spoon to actually be imported and help out the deck, mesh in as the engine played within the metagame. And we see that this card is just spiking once again. It's done this a lot through its history. You can kind of spike, and here we go again. So it's towards $11 for its hollowed out version, and the OTS common over here is on full buyout mode, so if you have that common, you might want to be pulling them out. And then it's also synchro version is spiking up, not the most ridiculous in the world, still around $2 or so, but once you're past those listings, it stays for a while till $3. It is up, but it's not too ridiculous. Just be aware people are buying this engine and hopium for the import for the meta. DD Swirl Slime also for future metas is starting to spike here once again for its QCR highest rarity version. So if it has utility, it's going to be playable, and its QCR does well. But if it's for a collectible aspect or even past format at time, it doesn't necessarily do it unless it's the top past format, which is Edison, or it's got some hype behind it. And here we have one that's climbing, and another one that did actually spike for Edison is Machina Gear Frame, which is interesting because it's coming down just a little bit, but got sales consistently in this higher range since its buyout earlier last month. Really kind of the data I want to be looking at when I see sales and the name QCR. But Bonanza feels like a bit of a different beast compared to what we'll talk about later. The Worlds Pack is listed here, and it is way under what Konami is trying to sell it for on Shop Yu-Gi-Oh! They're selling these boxes at $60 on Shop Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you might remember, people were scalping these at 90s and they were selling before, and I said, yo, wait, support a locals. It is now down towards $38, under 40. That is such a wild drop off, and it's selling at this price. I do think it's not a bad box just to have set to the side. Worlds packs in general in the past have done very well, and it's so unlikely to get rewaved. But like I said, they could do something with the arts inside and not hold them special. I really hope they do, but Konami can do whatever Konami wants. Look at all these sales at the 42 and then under range since we saw those disgusting pre-sales. And here you see it start to spike up towards that pre-sale range we talked about, and quite a few people ended up dropping that $90 freaking dollars on it. I really like these conversations with my audience on Sealed and talking about why. Like, I don't think it's most people watching this video that are spending $36, but figuring out all the cogs on how Sealed go, why it goes, and where it's likely to end up is really good to end up talking about. So with this, again, it was pretty right to say, look, just wait. It will be available at your locals. It may be a bit of a madhouse, but just wait. And it panned out even way better than I thought it would. But I do think a box of that sealed isn't bad to set aside, especially considering these top end cards right now are super performing, and then the Emblem secret rares, they're doing okay for the rest of the cards, obviously falling out versus what they were, but I do think it's still notable. Stuff like the Blue Eyes Tyrant, probably something. The Blue Eyes cards in general might be what you want to grab early out of this pack if you think they'll age well. I still like the ultra rares look more than the secret rare, even though the secret's highest rarity. So, I mean, get the versions you want rather than necessarily playing how they'll go in the future, because if I end up grabbing one, it'll be the ultra. I will not ball out and go for the secret. I just think it looks way worse, in my opinion. Now, QCR's falling out. I've had people call this access code talker the ugliest altar art out of them. I think he looks kind of neat. Look at this fall off, just almost half price down. Of course, it doesn't have all that much utility, but it is a Reigns figurehead and a meta past figurehead. $12. Red Eyes Black Dragon altar art. People were looking forward to this one in QCR. Look at this fall off over just the last 3 months. $20 all the way down to $14. Nothing threatening it. Nothing saying, oh yeah, there's going to be a Starlight of this. Just a fall off on a collectible card. I think most people that hold Diamond Hand cards have left, and it started out sales going up. People were really excited for this on release, and it is down so bad. Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, again, anytime I bring this up, I like to make the point it was in the metagame and still is rogue to some degree. So a fall off of these kinds of cards are to be expected a little bit. But this art that debuted, look at it just continuously go downward and now is around $46 to $48. And Dark Magician Arcana art, this is one of the ones I've been the most wrong on in recent history. I thought this would be one people clamor for. They've waited for a nice version. We had the Speed Duel secret for a bit, but here comes a quarter-century secret rare without that Speed Duel stamp that people don't like. Look at this fall off. Oh my goodness, from 60 all the way down to 26. People don't really value QCR right now, and a lot of people are arguing that 25th stamp is going to give it long-term value. I again implore you to think about how they are putting some kind of stamp on everything, and if there's so many different stamps, what's special about a stamp and how people will revere it versus a universal first edition stamp or something that says World Championship, YCS, WCQ, those kind of things kind of matter to players, right? Especially if they came up through the tournament scene. But once you get to, 25 years, everything has a 25th year as a brand if they make it out. Like, think about what the stamp actually means versus, oh yeah, the Starlight looks just like that. If they make a Starlight of these cards. I don't think they'll make a Starlight of all of them, and I think some of them have room to age, but if they get a competing Starlight, say in the 10s, I do think it will affect the card even if it was hard to get, like Exodia did for its Starlight into QCR. I want you to take a moment, because so many people argue about the stamp will matter, and look at everything that Konami and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is doing. They're stamping everything. And even if you don't call it a stamp, it's emblazoned, as I messed up before, but emblazoned, it's still a stamp. And it's still a Nike stamp, Adidas stamp. Like, I want you to actually consider that there's stamp collectors in the world, yes, but if they keep doing that thing where everything is special, then it loses a bit of special when everything is special. It can't all be that way. And we've said that long before Starlights, like when we had competing versions before. I do think that certain cards have the potential, but this one, I'm dead wrong about so far. And I like to eat my L's. This is one I am eating. And with other cards, I think there's still that apprehension. Would Konami ever do something with that art? Because Alter Arts have proven to be not special to them. Alter Arts that sold the 10s last year are in this year's 10s with a holo upgrade. So I do think when it comes down to it, Konami finds nothing to be sacred, but at times will leave it alone. For a very long time even. And I think that Worlds packs, I think they'll try to keep stuff like this special, but we'll have to wait and see how that actually pans out. Let me know your thoughts, though, again. With the Worlds pack, I brought this up in the last video. It's been on my mind. I really think this is a special Exodia, and I hope it leads to continue to be that way. But then again, Dark Magician Girl Ghost got a Ghost later in Ghost from the Past. And it's still the censored art on the Worlds pack Ghost, and it's still a different language, so, you know, there are differences at least. But I do feel like with Konami, it ends up that way. Let me know what you think of everything, though. It was super fun to actually dig through this, talk to store owners, and figure out what's going on with 10s, and I think it's a wild ride to kind of look at this and look at that and say what's going on, and hopefully that gave you some answers. Megaton Day 1, what a wild one.